Thanks everyone for joining. Let's just quickly get started. So we've got none other than Shailendra Nath Jha. Sir is going to be taking this masterclass for us. He's a product guy, a father, as his LinkedIn profile talks about. He's currently associated with Spinny. He is the Vice President Product Management at Spinny. We all know where we can buy and sell our cars. So Spinny is the go-to website that you should definitely be looking at, or the app that you should definitely be looking at. But before we get started, I have a question for you, sir. Tell us a little bit about a packet of Lays. I was getting very intrigued about a packet of Lays. I was just trying to read more about it. So this is a book to just set the context. A packet of Lays is a book that has been written by sir. So tell us a little bit just to break the ice about the book, and then of course over to you. I'd let you spearhead the conversation and take the masterclass forward.
Sure, I'm glad that you started on that packet of Lays bit. Because I definitely was not going to talk about it. But yeah, that's a book which I wrote taking advantage of the fact that everybody had got slightly more time in this pandemic, that you were working from home, you were managing those time when you would spend on commuting, etc. So this story I always had in mind. It's a real story, by the way. It happened to me when I was in my college. So I just put it down. It's a story of one day where everything went wrong for me. Finally, it ended up like all Bollywood kind of stories. It ended well. And it's about me and my girlfriend then, but now my wife. So, I could share it openly because now we are married and stuff. But it's a romantic story. And, you should definitely go ahead and read that one day story, Packet of Lays. It's available on Amazon on Kindle. And okay, so this is the boring slide, which is the LinkedIn style slide, which is where you will get to know where I work, where I have studied, etc., where all I have worked, as the LinkedIn style slide. But the more interesting slide is the one which is more the Instagram slide, which is where I'll tell you who I am, because I think it's very important for you to know who the people are, not just from their designations or where they have worked, but who they are really, right? And I'm a firm believer of that. So to start off, I'll say that I'm somebody who has orthogonal tastes. So this picture in between, you can see the left brain and the right brain. I think I was blessed enough to be good at both maths, physics, and those kind of subjects, as well as I had a knack of writing. And as you just said, I have written a book. I've written more than 100 odd poems till now, mostly in Hindi, and that is where this pen and this poetry thing comes. And I think in hindsight, product management happened to me for the right reasons, because, product management is not just about the either left brain or being right brain. It's not about design and customer experience only, and it is not about analytics and technology only. It is actually an amalgamation of both, which I figured out when I was at ISB in 2010-11, where product management, I think back then, when I joined Make My Trip right out of ISB, I don't think there would be more than, say, 50 or 100 product managers in the entire country, because it was only 4 or 5 companies who understood what product management is. Make My Trip happened to be one of those. Info, it was there, Yahoo, Google, etc. So that's I think I'm lucky enough to have got an entry into doing product management very early, when not many people knew about it, and learned things grounds up. And that is where the topic around this session, which is learning from product principles or product thinking from first principles, actually makes sense. The pictures you can see on the left, these are the 2 beautiful ladies in my life, my daughter and my wife. I'm a big cricket fan, and I've traveled a lot of places. And marrying cricket and travel, you know where I'm going. I have actually visited a lot of stadiums, watching cricket matches, both in India as well as outside. And that Shah Rukh Khan image right there on the top, all of you who are judging me for that can just leave this right now, leave this webinar. I'm joking. I like him as a person, as a businessman, not just as an actor, but as a human being, as an entrepreneur. I think he would be a very good product manager if ever he plans to become one. But yeah, please don't judge me for liking Shah Rukh Khan. All right. So this agenda, this topic, today's topic is going to be on product management using first principles. And I've actually presented this content a couple of times before, also in more than a couple of times before. And I'll be happy if both ways I am happy. If you've already seen this presentation before, I'm super happy because that means I'm very famous. But if you haven't seen this presentation before, then also obviously I'm happy because you will get to know something new today. And I trust you. I'll try to make it interesting and very lively and very practical because I'm that sort of a guy. Don't believe much in theory, more in practical. So the agenda today is we'll talk through, what is the thumb rule of new product development. And why I'll tell you that is that most of the companies I work with, be it Make My Trip, Magic Bricks, nearby, the famous Ankur Warikoo company, then Max Life Insurance, and right now it's Spinny. Most of the times I have handled products which were built 0 to 1. So those of you who don't understand this terminology, so their product, either you can build 0 to 1, or people say 99 to 100 or 1 to 100 or whatever. Essentially, that means it's a blank slate. You have to create something on ground up versus something which is already built, and you have to just keep improving the experience. And both are meaningful, but both require different muscles to be better at. I have been fortunate enough to actually work a lot of my time in doing new product development, which is 0 to 1. And this is where I think I was almost forced to learn using first principles, and I'll tell you how. And then I will talk about what exactly is first principle thinking. When have I used first principle thinking? We'll actually have a case study, which I will talk you through, where I applied that thinking, and hopefully some of that will be meaningful to you in whichever way, whichever domain or whichever industry or whichever company you work for. So, as a thumb rule of new product development is whenever you are going to a new industry, or because, as product managers, we are not tied to an industry. It's not like I'm a product manager of fintech, then I'll always be a product manager in fintech. Or if I have a product manager in travel, I will always be there. In fact, for me, you can see my example, I've never worked in the same industry again. And that's a conscious choice. I could have said that, after Make My Trip, you can go to booking.com or Expedia or things like that, or Oyo. But I intentionally took a decision that I will not work in the same industry again and again, because, every industry tells you something, and you can use some of the concepts from a particular industry back to the other industry. But the fundamentals of product management do not change, because it's the same user who is actually using Zomato and Uber and Magic Bricks and Make My Trip and other things. User remains the same. The devices, the technology remains the same. The consumer behavior remains the same. Obviously, the use cases differ, but that is more for the business guys to solve. You are there to understand the customer, the consumers, and what are the pain points which you have to solve. So nothing is obvious as rule number one, and you have to question everything. When I joined, say, life insurance, company, and I used to ask a lot of basic questions around insurance, right? And there were people who were like 50 years, 55 years, they spend all their life in insurance, and like, Acha, ye ladka aaya hai, he will tell us how insurance is done, right? These are the questions which you have to ask, because you are new to this industry, and unless you understand how is it done and why is it done, things would have changed over time. So you have to question everything. Nothing is obvious, right? Second is you have to start with the end goal and not with the constraint. Whenever you go ahead with a certain idea or a certain solution, everybody will say, oh, we have tried this before. This doesn't work. Or you don't understand. Things like, oh, beta, insurance is not bought. It is actually always sold. So, these kind of phrases and, knowledge which is there prevalent in an industry, people will tell you. But, don't get constrained by what people will tell you or the constraints. Think about what is the end goal. What is the right thing for the customer? Always think about that. And if something has never been done before or tried before, that doesn't mean it will never work, because it has always worked. Insurance, again, I'm using insurance again and again because that was like my previous company, and it's very fresh in my memory. And also because of pandemic, so people used to say insurance cannot be sold online because, and the agents have to actually visit the customer in their house to sell it. With pandemic, everything has changed. Now nobody's meeting each other, and people are still carrying on, and business is still happening, and maybe better than how it was happening before. And last but not the least, think from first principles basis. Now, what exactly is first principles, right? And my favorite example of explaining what our first principle thinking is, the difference between a cook and a chef. And can any of you tell me what is the difference between a cook and a chef? You can just type in the chat box so that I know you guys understand. I'm sure many of us in the pandemic, especially people who are not staying with their family, would have become cooks. Everybody would have cooked something. I have cooked a lot of new things which I never knew I could cook. But does that make me a chef? There are people who are writing, cook is anyone who cooks, chef is one with professional expertise. Okay. Chef can create new dishes, but cook will make usual stuff, right? Chef makes cooks basically single entity. Okay. All right. So some of you are right. Yeah, I'll tell you. See, a cook is somebody who will create something which has already been created, right? So a dum biryani, or a pasta of certain nature, or gajar ka halwa, or whatever, which has already been created, which the recipe exists. You go to the recipe, follow it literally, or it's open YouTube nowadays. YouTube is the master recipe of everything, and create whatever steps they are telling you. Just go ahead and do it. Everybody can become a cook. Anybody can become a cook. But a chef, on the other hand, actually understands the nuances of the spices, the oil, the aroma, the things, the vegetables, the fruits, and other things by the first principles. That means he understands that, okay, this will add, this will make the food a little salty. This will actually cut the aroma. This will actually enhance the aroma if you mix these two things to create something else. Why is he able to do that? And then he can actually create a new recipe out of his own, because he understands the basics of what the spices and all the things are, and किसको कैसे पकाना चाहिए, किसको गरम करना चाहिए, कौन सी चीज ठंडी अच्छी लगती है, because he understands the palate, कि कौन सी चीज कैसे जाएगी, जीभ पे कैसे सही लगेगी, etc. So chef is actually somebody who understands things by first principles, and he creates recipe on its own. Whereas a cook will only follow somebody who has already created. So if you are in the 1 to 100 kind of a product, or if you are in an industry, like for example, somebody is creating another Amazon, or somebody is creating another Zomato, you don't have to go anywhere, right? Just copy whatever has been done in the industry, and maybe do some variation, improvisation, and you'll become a good cook. But for example, if you're thrown into creating something new which has never been done before, for example, Google Glasses is coming, right? Or maybe something to do on watches, or some new technology comes in, which you have never even thought of before. You will never be able to be successful, because there is no literature available on Google or anywhere else where you can just copy. You have to think from the first principle. And now I will tell you the exact definition of what first principle is. First principle is a basic or a foundation preposition. It is actually a Google definition, which I've just copied, or assumption that cannot be deduced from any other proposition or assumption. That's the most fundamental ground truth, right? And our friend sitting here on this chair has a better way of explaining this than me. So I'll probably play that video for all of you, so that you get to hear Mr. Elon Musk himself.
I think it's also important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. So the normal way that we conduct our lives is we reason by analogy. We're doing this because it's like something else that was done, or it's like what other people are doing.
Me too type ideas.
Yeah, slight iterations
yeah.
on a theme, and it's because it's kind of mentally easier to reason by analogy rather than from first principles. But by first principles is kind of a physics way of looking at the world, and what that really means is you kind of boil things down to the most fundamental truths, and say, okay, what are we sure is true, or as sure as possible is true, and then reason up from there. That takes a lot more mental energy.
Give me an example of that. Like, what's one thing that you've done that on that you feel has worked for you?
Sure. So somebody could say, in fact, people do, that battery packs are really expensive, and that's just the way they'll always be, because that's the way they've been in the past. You're like, well, no, that's pretty dumb, because if you applied that reasoning to anything new, then you wouldn't be able to ever get to that new thing.
Right.
It's like you can't say, horses. Nobody wants a car because horses are great and we're used to them and they can eat grass. And there's lots of grass all over the place, and there's no gasoline that people can buy, so people are never going to get cars.
Right.
People did say that. And for batteries, they would say, it's going to cost. Historically, it's cost $600 per kilowatt hour, and so it's not going to be much better than that in the future. And you say, no, okay, well, what are the batteries made of? So first principles would be to say, okay, what are the material constituents of the batteries? Mm-hmm. What is the spot market value of the material constituents? So you can say, okay, it's got cobalt, nickel, aluminum, carbon, and some polymers for separation, and a steel can. So break that down on a material basis and say, okay, what if we bought that on the London Metal Exchange, what would each of those things cost? Like, it's like $80 per kilowatt hour. Mm-hmm. So clearly, you just need to think of clever ways to take those materials and combine them into the shape of a battery cell, and you can have batteries that are much, much cheaper than anyone realizes.
So yeah, you saw what Elon Musk was saying, right? So basically, he explained it beautifully that if you will actually get stuck with whatever is given to you, you will never be able to understand what are the core constituents of it, and you will never be able to reason by first principles. So when I apply that first principle thinking to product development, this is what I came up with. That whenever I look at a particular product or an industry which I've never worked in, I've never worked in any new industry, and whenever I get to work there, what I do is I break it down into simple steps. One is, what is the current state? You understand what is happening right now. What is the BAU? And then what is the desired state. Where is it that you want to reach in terms of the product or customer's experience or whatever, right? And then you start understanding, which is the very famous why ladder, right? Which is called peel the onion or the why ladder famously, where you keep asking questions why, and then why, and then why. And typically between 3 to 5 or even 7 whys, you will get to a very fundamental reason as to why. You will get an answer of why this is happening, right? Or what is the problem exactly. I'll give you an example to elaborate this further in the next slide. But you do this why ladder, keep asking questions. Don't get stopped. Remember my first slide where I said that somebody will tell you that, it doesn't work like this, but don't feel afraid to ask, why does it not work like this? Because, maybe it did not work because of a certain reason back then, but today everything would have changed, etc. Right? Then with that, you have some hypothesis that, I'm going to work on that final why, and, these are the hypotheses which I'm going to test this, iterate, never get stuck to the solution, and then go back to the to step 3, which is testing your hypothesis, and keep doing it until, either you have validated or invalidated the hypothesis. That seems very simple and logical. And I'll actually tell you, but it's very difficult because, whenever you are given a problem, our first instinct is to actually look for analogical solutions. Or in my previous example, as I said, you start looking for a recipe. You are moving to a new car. I moved to a used car industry, right? The first thing people will tell you is, go study CarMax and Carvana and other things which are happening in US, or go to, say, what is happening in Australia. And you try and mimic what is happening there. It may work, it may not work, right? Because, that's a different geography, that's a different thing. India is a very different economy and a very different, the demographics are very, very different. It may or may not even work in an Indian context. But if you just copy things from wherever it is, you will never be able to argue or work from a first principle basis. And this is where I'll actually move into the case, because so far it was theory. And as I said, I hate theory. I'm more of a practical person. I'll move to the case so that all of these concepts will become much clearer to you as we move ahead. This case is a real product which I developed when I was with Magic Bricks. And I'll take you step by step. What was the problem? How did I use the framework which I suggested? And what was the learning? So in home buying, and I'm guessing most of you are aware of Magic Bricks and the real estate. It's in the real estate business where people go to the listing to look at different properties, and they go for site visits, especially in case they are going to buy a property. This is mostly for the buying use case. So the current state was that they were redundant and tiring and unuseful site visits. Site visit is basically something where a user has to actually go and visit a particular location where the house is, or most of the time this is under construction, far-flung areas like Taj Expressway, Noida Extension. I'm from Delhi, so I tell most examples from Delhi, but I'm sure same cases will exist in wherever you are, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, whatever. And that was the current state. What was the desired state? The desired state was that the users or the customers will have to experience the home property with minimum hassle. And they should be able to do this at their own comfort and availability. They should have this flexibility. That was the desired state, the to state and the from state and the to state. And then we started moving to the why ladder, the peeling the onion. So remember, I said the current state is redundant, tiring, and unuseful site visits. Now you ask, why do customers go for unnecessary site visits? If this is unnecessary, why do we even go? So the answer comes because they don't get the relevant information and experience on the site or the app. Okay, so the information is not there on the site or the app. But why is it not available on the site or the app? Because the website or the app is not sufficient to provide the necessary experience. Because home buying, and similarly, I think car buying is also a experiential purchase, right? You need to be there, you need to see, look around, move, and then get an experience, get the vibes that, get the information from a depth perspective, etc., for you to take the decision. And that information is not available on the website or on the app. But you then ask, why is the website or app not sufficient? And the answer comes because the technology which is required to produce that kind of immersive experience is very expensive, and it might require hardware as well. And remember, now we are talking about some kind of a AR or VR technology, and remember, I'm talking about 2016 here. So 7 years since, and many things would have changed over time. So just move back 7 years and imagine a world that existed back then. This is one area of line of thinking, right? Then I started looking at another dimension. So I said, remember in this one that, it has unuseful site visits and tiring site visits. So you say, why are these site visits tiring or painful? Well, because the customers have to visit far-flung areas, and most of the time the sample flat are not ready. Because, you reach there and realize it's either closed or there's nothing, you just have a barren land there. So you break it down again. So why visiting far-flung areas is a problem? Visiting is a problem because, you have to travel in this heat, traffic, weather, you have to spend 2-3 hours, and you don't even get to see what you wanted to see. And why samples flat not really a problem? Because actually users want to see, look and feel the real flat, how it will be before they actually put their money and buy it. So similarly, I did multiple such why ladders to understand what is the root problem. For the interest of time, I'm summarizing the problem in one slide, because most of the times defining the problem in the right way, how do you put that problem on paper, that itself is 50% of the job done, because most of the time we don't even define the problem in the right way. And I'll just take a small example here. I was reading somewhere that with Amazon, when they were defining the problem around Kindle, they said we need to be able to deliver the book to the customers instantly. Focus is on the word instantly, or as soon as the customer orders. Imagine if this problem would have been constructed in a different fashion. For example, we should be able to deliver a book to the customer on the same day, or we should be able to deliver the book to the customer as soon as possible. Imagine if the problem was defined like that, it would have become a logistics problem, not a product problem. For example, they would have said, okay, we'll set up multiple hubs in each of those cities, or we'll increase the the logistics around it, the supply chain thing, and all those things would have started happening. You started working on a different direction of problem. But the moment the problem was defined as we need to be able to deliver the book instantly, this is where Kindle thought actually emerged, right? Because instantly, the only solution is you have to deliver it through the wire, right? Through the internet. And then somebody came up with the idea, okay, why don't we even create something which will look and feel like a book, but it's not a book. But that's a different story. That's for another session. The point here was, how do you define the problem precisely? So, the definition here that the experience of home buying and renting is a complex and high involvement process, and it requires actual and multiple visits to the location before finalizing. And this is an extremely slow and time-taking process. That's the problem. The solution out of all the while adders we came up was, through technology, a lot of this can be solved. However, if there is a place where user can come and experience the property so that they don't have to go and visit far-flung areas. And then there are some gadgets and equipments required to facilitate that kind of experience. And because it's expensive, it cannot be delivered over a phone or an app. We'll have to create that experience in one place and allow people to come there, like a physical place. And there they can, come and explore different properties. And this is the genesis of what we delivered, the product called as the Experience Center. This is the first image of that which we created. And we said that we'll actually create experience centers across the country at multiple hubs, like the airport or the railway station, the malls, etc., where we will have all the necessary hardware and gadgetry there, so that people, in their own convenience, whenever they want, they don't have to go to far-flung areas in this heat. They just can walk into a mall which is nearby in the comfort in AC. And most of the times when people are just, you would have seen nowadays people don't go to malls. I think people do, but I have stopped going to malls. But whenever I did, I was mostly alone. That my wife would go and start shopping. Sorry for being sexist there, but she would go and start shopping there, and I was just sitting alone and doing nothing, maybe doing something on my phone. Imagine those people, and that's the perfect TG which you are targeting. If this is available there, they could just go visit the experience center, look at the different properties through AR and VR technology, and I'll show you how it was done, and then get a sense of what that flat would look like without actually having the need to go to the far-flung area like that. And again, for this conversation, for this discussion sake, I will limit my discussion and examples to the software and not talk about hardware and fabrication. Those were also something which was very different. But I will just pause here to allow you to have a look at this. There is a big screen you can see, which is showing up here, which is actually a 65-inch big touch screen. They're small, which we used to call as buckets, small, 24, 25-inch, 21 inches, small monitors. And then, you had a big wall also behind. So, and I was creating this for the first time. Like, I had never created a product like this because it's almost like a physical product. And I had always in my life created digital products. And even for digital, I would create products for desktop, or I would create product for mobile. But I had never, or any of the members had ever created a product for a smart TV, which was a new thing in itself. And I'll tell you what were the challenges there, right? So designing for using the first principle that, imagine, usse pehle we used to tell our designers, and designers would always crib, and I don't know if there are designers in this room also, that, arey yaar, we don't have enough space, we don't have enough real estate on chota se screen mein aap kya dikhaoge, right? Here, on the other hand, the problem was completely different. It was a huge 65-inch screen. You could fill it up with anything. In fact, one of the things was you had to avoid the temptation to fill the large screen, which is the last point here. Because, you would just fill that damn screen with whatever you wanted to do. But there were multiple considerations. For example, on a small phone, there are ergonomics and heuristics around that. Sorry, my phone is not visible properly, but for example, if you're using a phone, your thumb, like all the CTAs need to be at the bottom, and it should be accessible using the thumb because mostly people use the right hand, etc. All that philosophy and logic, which is the copying the recipe or analogical thinking, went out of the window because we are not talking about phone, we're talking about a giant 65-inch screen. There, the considerations was height was a factor. So if you look at this screen again, that it's actually at a height, and it's a 65-inch screen. So we assume that an average Indian would be like 5.2. I think we took a lower side, but actually it should be 5.4, 5.5. But yeah, average height will be 5.2. So we imagine that somebody who's of a height, average height, should be able to access it. There is also a small widget, right? Small wedge kind of a thing, which is what we call as the buckets, which would also make that distance like a couple of feet away. So you can't just touch it intuitively, very easily. So you have to consider all those things that, a user, and whenever we were designing, we were actually putting one guy who was actually of that height, and usko bolte the ki touch karke dekho, are you able to do this? Are you able to do this or not? And we were doing it again, linking it back to the topic of this by first principle. This is no theory available. You're just doing it considering how would a human interact with that system, right? And some of the basic things were like, we have to, and these things came up by just plain observing people and first principle thinking. We have to allow natural gestures, because if you create something new, some new interaction which people are not used to, they will not do it, because it's not like a mobile which people understand. It's not Instagram, like isko swipe karne se picture aage बढ़ jata hai, isko click karne se aisa hoga, because nobody has worked on a 65-inch screen. And to minimize the interaction cost of tapping and typing, because you're in a public space, even something as basic as putting your phone number should be done carefully, because it's a public place. Some people might mind putting their phone number where 10-15 people are looking at your screen. So these things, like again, something like this nobody will tell you, or you cannot read it somewhere. You have to just observe it and think about the scenario. This is where user empathy will come. That agar ek user wahan kar raha hoga, to what are the things which he will be thinking of? And some of these things we also came to know as we went ahead doing the prototyping and the testing. And I'll just move ahead, just organize the time also. So what we did was, from a testing perspective also, again, using first principles, like we actually set this up, the entire damn thing on, so it was Times of India building in Noida 16. So on ground floor, we just put it up for almost a month or two. So people used to come, like hundreds and thousands of people used to come to Times of India building every day. And we actually used to sit there and observe people, what they were doing. Some of the interesting things which I will tell you here was, what were the learnings? So, vertically, it was a vertically mounted screen. So a vertically mounted screen has a very poor affordance of touchability. You understand affordance, right? Affordance means the likelihood of you doing what with this thing. So if there's a knob, which is a circular knob, you will go ahead and rotate it. If this is the handle, you will go ahead and pull it down. So that's the affordance. So affordance of touchability, like if you look at a vertical screen, typically these are considered to be billboards or moving screens that you don't touch. You don't go to an airport and if there's a screen, even if it is moving, you don't go and touch it, because you will look like a fool that you're going and touching it, playing it like a kid. But we actually wanted people to go and touch it. But how do you tell this to a user that you should touch it? So there were two options, right? One was that you actually incline it at a certain degree, because the moment you incline it at a certain degree, it gives you a feel of like an ATM machine, right? Which you touch. So suddenly you've increased the affordance of that being touched. But that was not possible because we had moved ahead in our fabrication bit, and it was no longer possible to change the design all of a sudden. The other option was this, which is what we did. We actually put a giant hand on there, and it was actually like an animated file. So it's not showing up there, but it's like a GIF file, and there were ripples moving there, and hand would move like this. And we also said that, so naturally, the moment you see a hand there, and we then tested it out, there are a lot of people who would just go and put their hand there. And we also wrote it just to make it very, very obvious that, place your hand to get started. People would just go, touch that and they used to get started. And we also told through on the, because it's not a standard product which people will know what to expect from. So we just put it on top that what are the steps in this entire journey. You have to search, you have to shortlist, you have to compare and get an activity report. Because that was the flow. This was the screen which you can see. We made it very, very different from what a desktop or a mobile screen would look like. Gave a very magnificent view with like map on the background, and starting with this. And some bit on the prototyping that, first of all, I think prototyping for a physical product is very, very difficult because, it's not like code. कि ये लिखा है तो इसको, and I'm trivializing that. I'm a software engineer also, by the way, and please forgive me, all the engineers who are there on this call. But it's not like some code has been written and you have to edit it. गलत हो गया तो change कर दिया, copy paste करके दूसरे में ले लिया, या फिर use it as a module or a function other way. Physical products में तो अगर कुछ गलत हो गया तो you have to just scrap it. It's like literally not possible to copy paste it. Control Z नहीं होता physical product. So it was very difficult, and you have to be very hands-on with the development work. And I'll tell you what I did there was also, and you have to be as modular as possible so that you, again, this concept comes from programming only, that you make it more modular so that each of those components can be handled differently, because we also knew that we had to transport these things to different parts of the country. So pura ka pura, it used to weigh, if I'm not wrong, around 1000 kg, that entire unit. So pura ka pura utha ke to nahi ja sakte truck mein. So we had to break it down, make it modular so that it can be assembled and disjointed at minimum fuss. So some of those slides, some of those pictures I still have around. These were the original sort of wireframe of a physical product. You will never get to see these things in a digital product. Like, how did we actually create? It reminded me of my engineering drawing days. All those engineers who are sitting here can relate to this. Front view kaisa hota hai, top view kaisa hota hai, side view, and this was the first time actually I got to use and deploy some of those thinking and knowledge of engineering drawing there. And then we came up with this kind of structure. Some of the things was, this was an example of how you have to be on top of the thing. Right? You have to go and visit it. It's almost like doing sprints, right? And you do daily check-ins and you do daily stand-ups with your teams. Almost like this. This was actually getting developed in some place in Okhla, and our office was in Noida. I used to go there almost every 2-3 days, just like a check-in there. And one day, this guy who was the contractor there, he sent me a picture saying that it was still the skeleton. And he said, when I'm standing there, the height on top of me is just around 1.5 feet or so. So when it will come up, it might be very claustrophobic, and you will not have enough space on top. And I went there, I checked it, and like, yeah, you're right. And we just quickly, you can see maybe some welding done here on the right side. We increased that by a couple of 1 feet or something more. That could be done because you were still in the prototyping phase. Like, you were hands-on, you were there. Had it been generated, developed, then it would have been very, very difficult to dismantle it and do it again. So you have to be very hands-on with these things. And this is, again, I'm saying, see, all of these things, nobody will tell you as a rule that, you have to do these things. You have to learn by first principle that, what is the right thing to be done. Even from a development perspective, you have to be there with the team to support them. You have to make it modular so that it can be reassembled, etc. Some of these are not images, or these are not like colors, etc. They were real stuff which was supposed to be put, like the tiles, etc. What is the texture? Like, agar log us pe chalenge, so they shouldn't fall, but at the same time it should also look shiny. Almost like civil engineering kind of work also I did in that stint. Some of those images from very basic steps to finally this, and eventually we came down to created the final thing, which I have a small video.
the right property involves a lot of search and decision making. What if we can make it easier and actually turn it into an experience? MagicBricks is here with a new cutting-edge technology which will change the way people do property search. The entire MagicBricks Experience Center is divided into 4 sections. It all starts with this huge 65-inch display panel in which a user can search, shortlist, compare, and finally get an activity report. And it all starts with a simple touch. A user is taken to the homepage of MagicBricks Experience Center, where he can either search for a particular locality or builder or project. Suppose a user is in Bangalore and he's interested in HSR layout, and he has a preference for 3 BHK. He can obviously change the budget range and then he searches. He's taken to a page which is basically a listing of properties. He can go through the details of the properties in this left panel. For example, locality rating, price bifurcation. Now, if suppose a person is interested in this property and if he wants to shortlist this property, he can basically drag it down and the property will come into his bucket. Suppose a user wants to compare the 2 shortlisted properties against a set of attributes which are listed here. For example, if he's interested to see how many hospitals are there in the vicinity of these projects. And similarly, he can keep on liking and giving thumbs up or smiles to the properties against each of these attributes. And finally, he's taken to his activity report, which basically tells him which is the number 1 property against the likes which he has given. And now is where the magic card comes into play. This is a RFID card reader. By a simple touch, and the list of shortlisted properties will move into this RFID card. And from here on, he can move on to the next steps, which is the VR and the hologram sections. This is the 360-degree virtual reality zone in which a user can virtually walk through your property even without visiting that property. The way it works is the user will come here with the magic card from the previous screen. This magic card already has the shortlisted properties. He simply needs to tap in this card here and the list of shortlisted properties will come up here, in which he can choose one. The user simply needs to wear this headset and then start taking a tour of your property even without visiting that property. It almost feels that the user has reached that property even while he's sitting in an airport or in a mall. This is the 3D hologram section in which your project can be showcased in its entire glory. The flow is the same. User carries this magic card, taps onto the screen, selects one project, and starts experiencing your project in a floating scale model. The beauty of this is it can showcase your project, a part of your project, or even a flow plan in a physical scale model, but which is digital. Continuing with the seamless user journey, we bring to you the next zone, which is the Great Wall of Magic. This is a huge 75-inch 4K display panel in which you can showcase your video walkthroughs or any other advertisement of your choice. Aided by innovation at every step, we welcome all of you on board to experience real estate the new age way at the MagicBricks Experience Center.
That was the video, the final thing which I want to share, and I'll just have one last slide on what are the learnings, and I'll just try to summarize that, whenever you are faced with any new or completely different industry or situation, don't get rush into analogical solutions, etc. Right? Think of it from first principles basis. Get to the root of the problem. That is very important. Somebody was asking, how will a senior PM actually give me the chance? They will, trust me. I am a senior PM. I am the VP, by the way. So I also give a lot of chance to people who come up with fresh ideas and fresh solutions. If there is somebody who is not giving you the chance, then probably that's the time to move on to a different company. Live the problem, replicate the situation. That you have to actually be in the shoes, as we say, right? Be very hands-on with the solution, not be like sitting in the boardroom and thinking of a solution. Iterate and don't fall in love with the solution. Fall in love with the problem, but never fall in love with the solution, because solution might change, but the problem might still exist. And finally, enjoy the process, not just the end, because honestly, this was not the most the commercially most successful product which I have ever put my hands on. But definitely from a learning perspective, you can imagine this was built in 2016. I still am using this as an example that would show you that the learnings which I got from this, from a not so profitable product also, from a product perspective, it was immense. And that is where I will end. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Nirja or Ayush to take it over from there. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, even I will let you spearhead the conversation because I think it was absolutely enriching to figure out through your anecdotal references. So certainly, I think we learned a lot. Very inspiring. When you showed the Magic Bricks eventual video, I think it was stellar result altogether of whatever steps that you were telling us, sir. So incredible journey there. Very quickly, of course, I hope all of you are aware about the placement-focused product management bootcamp that we are coming up with very, very soon as a part of our master camps. And all of you know that product management is going to be something which is required. And just like sir was saying that, despite being the vice president, there are always, there's room for looking at the problem, not being in love with the solution, but being in love with the problem and trying to change and improvise that entirely. And also, as it's said in product management lingo, wherever there's a product, there is a product manager. So this is a high growth industry that we're talking about. Improvisation as well as product building, everything is something which is really important, understanding the pain points. So we're going to be launching this new course, which is going to be a placement focused boot camp. But I think by and large, of course, let's just very, very quickly address a few question answers, Q&A that have come in. So sir, there's a question that has been asked by Arjun in the question answers section. And the question is that he's a final year student in computer science. He doesn't like coding at all, but he likes managing. So do you think that he could probably be an ideal candidate for this boot camp that we're organizing?
Yeah, why not? I also didn't like coding, by the way, although I did coding for a couple of years after I passed out from NSIT. But I was very clear that, this is not, I wanted to understand why are we doing whatever we are doing than actually getting a high of coding it or doing it. There are people who like algorithms and coding themselves, but I was more interested in why are we doing it and what is the impact which is going to create. So if you're also passionate about the why, because product management is all about the why and not the how and the what, because there are a lot of people who would actually assist you in getting to the what and the how. But if you're passionate about why, then definitely product management is the place for you.
Right. So S Mehta has asked a question that today when we're talking about product differentiation, how can we figure out what the problem is? Even though I think you've answered this question during the masterclass where you said about why laddering, asking the 5 why, trying to get to the root cause of the problem. But still, would you like to take this question, sir? That when we're talking about products and the range of products coming in, even though you mentioned in the master class as well that the same users using, say, different kinds of apps. So obviously, we're looking at knowing it and trying to make sure that there's an ease for the user. But still, would you like to address this question again, that how do we recognize what is the problem as a product manager?
And he's asking only when he's moving to a new industry?
He's asking that, when this is S Mehta's question in the question answer section, okay. And he's saying in today's market, very generic question, general question.
See, I don't think every customer has a different need. So obviously, it's slightly different need. And this is where the concepts of segmentation and personas come in, and those are the ones which you learn as product managers, and you should learn that you group people in personas and segments, right? Segments is more a marketing term, but personas is more a product management UX term. That there are certain personas that a 35-year-old male working in an IT company in Bangalore, recently married, has a different use case versus a 52-year-old guy with a teenage son or daughter will have a different use case. And you have to create, and you largely in this analysis, in this thing, what we do is we actually create multiple personas, maybe 2, 3, 4. We actually put it on paper, like in different companies I've seen, you literally put those guys' photos and people and their theories around it. And you keep looking at those people. And whenever you're designing a solution, you think about that person, that, will this person get benefited out of whatever I'm doing? And not everything you will do will matter to everybody else, because certain features in a product will be, for example, we say that somebody is a novice user, early stage user, and early adopter. And there will be some people who will be advanced users, right? There are many things which WhatsApp as basic product as WhatsApp provides, which, for example, you would use WhatsApp very differently than your father or my father, right? If I ask him to send somebody's phone number contact on WhatsApp, he will not be able to do it. But that exists as a feature, right? You and I do it. If I ask you to send your location, you will be able to send it, but not everybody else will be able to send it. But you create things and features for certain users, leave out certain other things, and have those personas in mind. So it's not like you have to create 1 lakh different use cases. You have to create only 5 different use cases, group those according to personas.
There's a question which is very pertinent and has been put in the chat box also. This is Devak's question. What is the scope for product management when we're looking at the newcomers or people who are freshers in the domain? This was a recurrent question. So people who are new to this entire domain, what is in it for them?
I didn't understand this. What is it?
In the sense, like if, for instance, somebody is coming like a blank slate, they're freshers over here, and they want to make a career in product management. So how can they go about it? Will this be a high growth industry for them also, or is it only for people with relevant work experience?
Even I was a fresher when I started, right? And everybody will. So it's not like every company is looking for only people who have relevant experience. Even at Spinny or multiple places, right? We do hire for freshers. Which is the entry-level role in a product management ladder is APM, which is the Associate Product Manager. There are sometimes people hire you as product analyst also. And those are the entry-level positions. And from there you grow up. So there the expectation is not that you understand product management. There the expectation will be you obviously have some understanding of technology, have deep empathy for users, some bit of design thinking. The communication is good. Your ability to manage ambiguity is slightly better. So some of those traits are tested. Not necessarily, some of the core things like, as I said, personas or how do you manage Scrum, etc. Those things you will learn when you. But definitely there is a scope for all the freshers, and we have hired from engineering colleges as well as MBAs who do not have any experience in product management. In my team, there are people who do not have any experience in product management, and they're doing very well. They're learning.
Absolutely. There's a question that has been posted by Yash Bhandari. I'll quickly answer this, that when would the bootcamp start and when would it end? As you're able to see, Sir's also shared the screen. Yash, it's a 200 hours program. And yes, you can actually do it alongside your work. That is what these mastercamp bootcamps have been organized to make sure that you're upskilling yourself. It's a placement focused mastercamp that will be there, and you can take it alongside your work. So there is no need for you to leave your job at all, because this is going to be in a hybrid format, and over the weekends the classes are going to be conducted. There is a question which is by Hashir, that what is the major difference between a product analyst and an APM role?
I think 50% there will be an overlap. The difference will be a product analyst will be more centered around the analytics part. So looking at data, like familiarity with Google Analytics or tools like that, BigQuery, etc., Data Studio. You understand those things, you have decent understanding of SQL, you can pull out reports, do analysis. Whereas an APM, he will also be expected to do some of this analysis, but his focus will mostly be around the user, talking to the users, looking at the heat maps, speaking to the customers, looking at listening to the call recordings, working through the business teams to understand what are the priorities. The product analyst will mostly be focused on analysis part, not as much as the business. So, I always use this very famous Venn diagram, right? When you search for product manager and go to images tab, you will see this Venn diagram saying customer, technology, and business, right? So analyst will mostly be, his 70% role will be like technology centric, mostly data and stuff. Whereas the APM will actually be spread all over, more business and consumers. That's a small difference. And there are companies who call it differently also. There are times when they might be same also. In our organization, there are 2 different roles called product analyst and APMs. And that's the difference which I have told you.
Right. There's a question very specific by Swapnil Patel. So Swapnil is having over 12 years of work experience, but there's no relevant work experience in product management. And post the MBA, his MBA also, he's been working on general management roles, especially when it comes to sales and business development. So can he transition into product management?
See, if you want an honest answer, I think after 12 years of experience in non-product, it will be difficult. I will not give you false hopes. It will be difficult. I at least don't know of anybody who has been able to do this, except maybe one person who is still trying to move. And if you can connect with me personally one-on-one on LinkedIn, I'll maybe connect you to that guy but he has done his MBA now from ISB, and after 12 years of experience. But he was working very closely with the product managers. He was not a product manager, but now he has transitioned. I'm not sure if you were into business development and all, how easy will it be? It will be difficult, certainly.
Right. I think that was very candid. So, Iqtidar, yes, there will be proper placement support that you're going to be getting. There will be a webinar very soon. This was a masterclass, but there will be a webinar specifically on the product management course. So you can attend that, and you can also know about the placement focused product management program that we're coming up with. There's a question by Pulkit that is there any difference between project manager and product manager?
There are a lot of memes, by the way, which go around on this. That famous meme that somebody actually slaps somebody if you ask this question, because product managers actually get offended if you call them project managers, right? But I agree, there are a lot of, because this function itself is a very nascent function, right? And still is nascent even after 10-12 years of being in existence. People don't understand project management is just simply put, project manager role is to make sure a certain work is done within time and within scope and within the money. Product managers, actually 5% effort will be around project management. He's actually responsible for a KPI or for business deliverables. He understands users. Project manager doesn't have to do all of this. Project manager only has to make sure that a certain work gets done. As the name suggests, like he's managing a project. Project is it has a shelf life. Like project can be 2 months, 6 months, 4 months. Product is like it will never end, right? Unless you shut it down, like Orkut and stuff. But otherwise, product will have a long life, and it's a much more meatier and much more nuanced and high caliber kind of role than project management.
Right. There's Shubhranshu Patra who's asking that he's in his third year. Would he be eligible for the boot camp, or are there any specific criteria that needs to be catered to? Considering, is there some extra knowledge which is required for him to enter the boot camp?
I'll take that. I think if you're an engineer, you have the technical know-how, and transitioning into product management would be a little easier. This program is open for people who've recently graduated, so it's a good time for you to join. That's the answer, Shubhranshu. Thanks, Nija.
Thank you, Vaibhav. So Radhika, what skills, technologies should a product management aspirant know? This is a question that Radhika's asked.
If you're an aspirant, if you're a fresher, I'm assuming, as I said, right, especially nowadays, we expect you to have a decent understanding, have a product IQ. When I say product IQ, it means you should have a view on different products, which are commonly used product. Like people will typically ask you, tell me your favorite product. And, the answer should not be only WhatsApp or Instagram. It can be more like better products. These are also better products, by the way. But, and you need to have a say on what makes this product more usable. Why do you think this actually serves the purpose which the product does? So you need to have a product IQ in a sense of what product are, how products are built, how are they serving a purpose. Apart from that, I think basic knowledge of like some basic understanding of analytics in terms of they might ask you some guesstimate questions, etc. So you need to be aware of that. And good communication, logical thinking, reasoning, those are, I think, more and software aspects. I think if you're, as I said, a good communicator or a storyteller, that will help. Because situation will be very ambiguous. Nobody will tell you this is what you have to do. Like there will be fire from all sides, and you have to manage that. If you have that balanced head to be able to prioritize and look at different things, uh, customer, you have to serve the customer also, you have to make money also from the business, and that has to be done in conjunction with the technology, that it should be able to deliver. Like, you shouldn't give something to technology which is not even possible. So you need to have that basic understanding. So these three aspects, if you cover, those are the some basic things which we expect from a product manager.
Right. There's a question by Arun Kumar in the chat box. Arun, this is not an MBA. This is a proper placement focused program, which is just trying to provide you with the relevant skill set to make sure that you're industry ready. So an MBA would be much more general in nature, or it can also be specific based on the specialization that you're going in for. But this will predominantly only the hardcore 200 hours of training that you'll get would be rigorously engaged in, giving you the know-how of how you can enter into product management. What are the live case studies? Just like a couple of them were shared by Sir as well, the Magic Bricks example, for instance. So you will be getting all the technical expertise to be prepared and be job ready, work ready from day zero in product management altogether. Vaibhav, is there any question that you would like to?
No, Nija, I think we're good. We've largely covered all questions. There's a question about scholarships. So something that we'll only be able to tell you once you apply. So I'll just share the link so that you can apply to the program, and post application, we'll share the amount of scholarship that you'll be eligible for. That's largely it.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. I think the masterclass was really very helpful. Thanks everyone for joining in. Should you have any other concerns, we have already shared the mail ID as well. Please feel free to reach out to us, and please feel free to reach out to sir on his LinkedIn profile if you have any other doubts that you're having. Thank you so much, everyone.